Greg Womack of Womack Investment Advisors, large Berkshire Hathaway shareholder and manager of the Oracle of Omaha ETF portfolio. Welcome, Greg, to Power Lunch. Good to see you. Do you share Mr. Buffett's view that we're in the midst of a very significant turnaround economically?
Well, that's for sure the way the numbers point, Tyler. And, you know, we're seeing a lot of improvements from last year. So his models show, especially the railways, you know, Becky did a great job in her interview today, and they're showing improvements across the board in shipments, and that's encouraging. So, yeah, I think, you know, Warren is an eternal optimist, and he's positive on the American economy. So, you know, you have to side with him in the long term. It's the short term. You know, we're coming off a severe bottom from last year, so we're comparing from a year ago numbers. So long term, I'm hoping he's right. We're going to, you know, come out of this good. So we see some good numbers right now.
There are a lot of people who like to follow Berkshire's stock portfolio, and if I'm reading the numbers correctly, the top 5 holdings in that portfolio are Coke, Wells Fargo, American Express, P&G, and Kraft Foods. So a broad exposure to the American economy, particularly it would seem the consumer economy and financials. That makes up 70% of Berkshire's portfolio. 5 stocks equals 70%, if I'm reading the numbers correctly. Should I be comfortable with that kind of concentration?
Well, it is a huge concentration, Tyler, and, you know, if you look at it, those stocks have done fairly well and held up fairly well. If you look at the returns on the stocks portfolios, and we show it up there, the one-year returns since March 31st, a year ago, it's up 74%. That's outperformed Berkshire stock, and it's outperformed the S&P 500. But you've got to take the lumps, like in 08. So it is a concentrated portfolio, but it is positive America. People have to have these products or, you know, need them. And so that's what he believes in.
Becky, at what point, though, does Warren, do you know, or have you talked to him about taking some of those positions off the table? I mean, nobody ever got broke taking a profit, and you look at a Wells Fargo, you look at an American Express, and from the bottom, those stocks have had significant moves to the upside.
They have to, and if you listen to Buffett, he did say talk a little bit this weekend at the shareholders meeting about that. He's a long-term investor in these things. He is not looking to take profits on any of them. He reiterated his support for how he thinks Wells Fargo is a fantastic bank. I believe he thinks it's the best bank out there. He also talked about Coca-Cola and how he's going to be holding these shares for a long, long time to come. So he looks at this, again, on the long term, and long term, he's not planning on backing away or locking in any of those profits just yet.
Hey, Greg, I'm looking at your Omaha ETF portfolio here, and you, just like Buffett, don't like tech at all. You got 30% in consumer, 30% in financials, you know, 20% in transports. Aren't both of you guys missing out on a great tech run-up here?
Well, Dennis, we do more than just the Buffett model. So we do a lot of different things. But what we do is we have several leaders that we follow, including T. Boone Pickens and Bill Gates and some others. But if you look at him, this portfolio, you're right, there's not a lot of tech in there. You know, his top holdings in this, if you were to buy all 5 of these ETFs, top holdings would be Procter & Gamble, Bank of America, J.P. Morgan, Walmart, and Wells Fargo. So very similar holdings, but you do get a little more diversification in this ETF strategy versus just owning those stocks within the Berkshire.
Let me ask you first, and then Mr. Womack, were you or were people in the crowd at all surprised that Mr. Buffett came out as strongly in support of Goldman Sachs and personally in support of Mr. Blankfein? Becky?
You know, Tyler, I wasn't personally surprised based on how he said, the way he explained it and laid it out, as he said he'd gone through all of it, he'd been in very similar deals like that himself, and that he thought this was a case where maybe the people who were just not very smart about making this bet were then coming back to complain. The audience may have had some surprised people. In fact, Mr. Buffett told us on Saturday morning before he walked into the shareholders meeting that of the 40,000 shareholders he was expecting, he figured 39,900 of them did not understand the deal that the SEC complaint is based on. He said he hoped he changed some of their minds with it, but after 5.5 hours of questions from shareholders, Charlie Munger, the vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, and Warren Buffett got a standing ovation from their shareholders.
Greg, what did you think of the endorsement of Goldman and of Mr. Blankfein?
You know, I think it was a huge surprise. I think, you know, he likes Goldman Sachs. He supports them fully, and Mr. Blankfein. And also, you know, he's put $5 billion of his Berkshire money into it and getting a 10% dividend. So I think he is going to support Goldman Sachs. He said he read the reports, read the findings, found nothing wrong. Warren's got some good wisdom in this area, so for right now, we're going to have to side with Warren.
All right, Greg, thank you very much. Becky, good to see you as well. We'll see you back here tomorrow.